Yes, here we go. It is the T.N.F. It's the night we hand over the keys to you. We are back. And look who is back to join us. It's been a long time since we've seen him, but the judge is back on the bus. I know you've been a busy boy, mate. How are you? Great to have you back on.
I'm doing very well, Russell. Thanks for having me back on. I was away teaching chimpanzees how to roller skate for a few weeks there, so I'm back.
Oh,
I'm back with a bang, mate. I've picked probably the worst week to come back, but I'm back here nonetheless.
I know. Good to have you back on, mate. I think there was many speculation that you'd been suspended by the club and all that sort of stuff, but
I got a few. I got a few messages asking if I was all right, which is nice people. But I'm back, mate. I was just, it's like sometimes, boys. It's just a fail on bad days,
life
etc.
gets in the way, mate. Life gets in the way. No problem at all. As I say, I'm very laid back with all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to, as you've got older and the longer we've been doing this, I think initially, obviously, you're just desperate for things to go amazing in that. Do you know what I mean? And we all got caught up in that at the time, and I love that. Do you know what I mean? I like that. I like that ambition. And now it's just a case of going like, you've got to appreciate the amount of time that folk have dedicated to this so far, and include myself in that, by the way. We
Of course.
dedicate a hell of a lot of time and a lot of hours, and I just think I'm now like, just relax. When guys are available, we'll go live. We'll do as many shows as we possibly can. We don't want to let anyone down, but at the same time, unlike all the other ones that you watch, or the 90%, none of this is our paid job. So we are trying to just dedicate what free time we've got. And as you're saying there, life can get in the way, and it means that you might miss the judge for a few weeks, but these falling out behind the scenes or any of that nonsense.
No, nothing like that, mate. Nothing like that.
Oh, Phil runs a tight ship, man.
We can always just we could have said there was some sort of catastrophe. We've patched it up just to let some sort of
Yeah, we should have the
and
showdown.
then it could have been a case of we get more views because folk like, what's happened there?
Yeah,
It's
we could have
really
been
good
like
to be
you,
back. I'm glad we resolved that issue.
could have been like Eubank Jr. and Conor Ben, Phil mediating it, and then there's me and the judge was staging a fallout, and
I just sit and talk to you like this, like that. I'm all right. You know what I mean? Just
can't believe I'm talking to this guy. Anyway, we get stuck into it tonight. All that good stuff means do give us a wee like, give us a share, buy some hair, all that carry on. Remember, if you want to become a member, $1.99 a month. It's totally optional. All the content remains free on the bus, as you know. MemberPieSports.com as well. Tasty pastry treat. 12.5% off at the checkout with the code BUS1888. And if you are subscribed, remember, hit the bell and you never miss a bus when we do eventually rock up at your stop. Right, Mark. Me and Terry did a half-hour post-mortem on Sunday. There was a hell of a lot to get through, and I think there was, to be honest with you, when I look back at doing that show, obviously a few beers and that, but I was kind of shell-shocked as well. And it was hard to, usually me and Terry, well, thanks to Terry, the shows usually for PMP are quite well structured, and we sort of chronologically go through the lineup and then blow-by-blow accounts, and I think the tours were kind of, because we went on earlier as well, we hadn't even had the chance to gather our thoughts. And as I say, because of that shock at mainly the level of the performance, to be honest with you, the result was no surprise once you've seen how we played. It was really hard to, it was really weird that none of the show was actually structured at all, but I actually think that captured the mood of how a lot of fans were feeling at that time, if you know what I mean, as well. The dust is now obviously long settled. And I'm sure many are looking forward to your views in particular of what happened at the weekend. I mean, a couple of things I'm just going to get the ball rolling with, if you like, at the weekend. As much as I might have been shell-shocked when I was talking about Celtic's performance and things like that, I still feel for me that's the focal point of all conversations regarding the weekend. And I'm going to put my cards on the table early, Matt, and that is, I don't care about pish about water getting sprayed at fans by Cairney. I'm not offended by it. If it's, if people are going, but that's technically it's assault and that. Well, Mika Lustig stole a Polish cap, and technically that's illegal too. And it was all apparently in good spirit then. I mean, I find that we often, when we don't get a result against them, it's instantly we talk about referees. We talk, or I say we loosely. I mean, in terms of the Celtic sport, we go into ranting and raving about their songbook, which hasn't changed since I've started watching football. And it's always sort of deflecting, sort of this sort of, sort of poor us. I think we need to just be cynical about this and say, cut all that bollocks away and focus on our team. And that is the root cause of why any other things are getting looked at and exaggerated or overly offended at. It all comes back to one thing, and that's how Celtic lined up, how they approached the game, how they played throughout that match, the manner of the goals they conceded, the fact they've now conceded 3 goals 3 times in a row against their rivals. These are the key factors here. These are the things we need to look at. I want to know your thoughts on that, Marc, whether you share that view. And if there is anything, by the way, on the any side shows you do want to go into, of course I'm happy to discuss them. I'm just giving you my viewpoint on it that for me I'm not interested in it, and I think you should be focusing on football, and that might be quite hard sometimes, but I think in this instance for me it's the real root cause of our anguish since Sunday.
No, first of all, I listened to you and Terry's post-match only this morning, to be honest with you, or later on this afternoon, and I must admit, I agree with you. I don't think water throwing and all the rest of it. If I was a Celtic player, we'd be sitting laughing about it just now. So we can't have it both ways, boys. So you can't be sitting calling these people orange bastards every 2 seconds and then be offended when somebody thinks some water in their face. I mean, grown men getting upset about that, behave. And you mentioned the by-effects and stuff. If that's a comfort blanket for folk to say, well, we'll give them the job, then just park that to the side. My biggest gripe about the weekend was Celtic, from start to finish, for the club deciding to ban the banners, and then somehow, in my opinion, complicit in how the police have been treating the fans, and then to how the team and manager performed. That's my bigger issue. I've not got an issue with Rangers taking 40 seconds to take throw-ins. They were so streetwise against us, it was unreal. For the minute they walked into the stadium with the orange tracksuits on, they knew what they were doing. 10 points to them for that. For even the warm-ups, warming up right in front of the Celtic fans, as close as they could possibly get to wind up with Celtic fans. No got a problem with that either. Into their antics on the park. They played every hand they played it perfectly. Celtic was Celtic's downfall the other day there, and every other thing is a sideshow. I think, even the mascot, I mean, there was 6 flags at Celtic Park, 2 green, 2 white and 2 orange to signify the tricolours. And Hoopy the Huddle Hound decided to wave a 20-foot orange flag for about 5 minutes when about the park. How he decided that would be the best idea, I don't understand. I thought that's going right on the Rangers Facebook within seconds, and I'm pretty sure it did. But even that, it was just all it added up to just a right cunty idea for Celtic, and I thought the lineup was terrible. I mean, for talking sake, we all know Sloop is supposed to be versatile, when we could have played Taylor out in the left and Sloop in the middle. I think Nuvaroki was probably the best defender on the match for Celtic, but part of the reason why Celtic couldn't break Rangers' press was the pace of the ball, which is partly to blame with how slow and how safe Nuvaroki was playing the ball. And Celtic were solely concentrating on the right-hand side, and Carter Vickers and Johnson weren't getting out fast enough. They too had a terrible game, but I think the one of the biggest mistakes about no breaking Rangers' press was how slow the ball was going, and a big part of that was Nuvaroki. I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name. I'm butchering it. I'm sorry. The big Polish guy. And I think all of that. Navrotsky. And I think all of that took Sloop out of the game, and it also took Jota out of the game. And then you combat that with a midfield that didn't exist, a right winger who should have stayed in his bed, to be quite honest with you. And the game just, I left after 40 minutes. I didn't even hear the Tannoy announcing the goal scorer. I just got up and left. It could be, if it was a VAR check, I might have stopped, but I was up and left. I think if I told you that, I left straight away. I was in the house.
Talk me through that decision making. Why you
I watched that game, and I had no faith whatsoever so they were going to get back for that game. And when I arrived home, I come in, get changed, and by the time I put the TV back on, Maida was celebrating. I went, oh, here. Even at that point, I had no regrets about leaving the stadium. Not one regret. I thought Celtic, it's the first time I've been to a derby match that the opposing team wanted it so much more than Celtic. I thought Celtic were intimidated for the very first kick of the ball. They were timid. They were intimidated. You mentioned that as well. exactly my words as well, boys. They just looked like they were scared to make the pass, they were scared to make the run. Couldn't, I'm sorry, 5-6 weeks does not make an 18-month career at Celtic. I think he's Palmer Mark II. We'll get to him later on, in my opinion. I think he's maybe just one that's gave us a few good games and will be eventually just weaned out, to be honest with you. And my decision to leave the stadium was, boys, I saw enough. I thought Schmeichel was going to find the ball in the back of the net again in a minute here. I thought the back four, as I say, the Rocky looked decent, but the back four was awful. Schlupp was took out the equation altogether because of the way the ball was getting played. When the team selection should have been Greg Taylor, who's played 30 of these matches, won trebles, won quadruple trebles, won games in the Champions League, won cup finals for Celtic, and he decided to throw a guy who's played 26 minutes of football all season into the centre-back position when he could have put Schlupp there, kept Greg Taylor. That guy's almost seamless. That's seamless, boys. You know what I mean? I don't understand that. I think that was Rodgers' biggest mistake on Sunday.
I touched on it the weekend. I said, the least guy you could blame in terms of his performance level would be Nawrocki.
Yeah.
But I think what he brought as a presence in the team, through no fault of his own, was doubt, because he's not someone that they're familiar playing with at all. And I think that put other players slightly on edge.
Are real. That's real,
I think you could feel like there was it'd be like if Schmeichel had got injured in the warm-up and suddenly seen us losing goals. It would have had a ripple effect on the teammate, right? Undeniably, right? And I think my wonder with the Nawrocki inclusion was how much notice did the team have he was going to be the guy playing?
Aye.
But that's,
surely
you got the vibe. It was a left field choice, albeit, as Terry was saying, it was default because of the injuries. But was it default, or was there other ways of, as you're touching on, was there other ways to have actually accommodated it and kept more regulars in the starting 11, maybe even slightly out of position? Because bringing a guy out for the cold like that, whilst he actually on an individual basis did okay, and whilst the other things I'm talking about are actually not his fault whatsoever, I think it led to a wee bit of doubt for the get-go. Because maybe one of the reasons I'm saying this as well, Marc, is I'm struggling, like I said on Sunday, to search for the answer and to square the circle as to what made us look so in doubt from minute one. So that's one of the things I'm kind of looking at. Is that potentially it?
Well, just it's quite funny. I'll just say this very quickly. You mentioned minute one there. I've been speaking for a few months. You might have caught me on Twitter. I might have said it in the chat as well, but we're getting this really bad habit of starting games and ending halves extremely poorly. I'll give you about 10 examples here in the last few months, boys. Dundee 3 each game. Goal lost in the 41st and 51st minute. What's that say there? St Mirren, 48th minute. Villa, 2nd, 4th, 86th minute. Bayern Munich, 45th, 48th, 89th minute. Rangers, 4th, 37th, 88th minute. Aberdeen, final up, 1-0. If there was a goal, 90th minute. Hibs, 2-1, 2nd minute. That's just games in the last 6 or 7 weeks. And there was actually more fixtures that I was going to get in before the pod started, but I never got a chance to. We're starting and finishing games of football and halves of football. And that's concentration levels, boys, if you ask me. You know what I mean? We seem to be doing no bad in the middle of the halves, but the actual starting and the end of the halves, I think that's concentration, that's mental fatigue kicking in there. I think it's been quite obvious that you don't lose goals. Big teams and good teams don't lose goals in key moments. The key moments are the beginning of the games and end of the games, boys. So let's be honest. How you start a game, how you finish a game is normally where you're judged. You know what I mean? Celtic have been lucky enough that we play in Scotland that, as I say, with all these games that I've just mentioned, we only lost 2 or 3 of them. You know what I mean? But in Scotland, you get away with it, you know. But it's just worth mentioning that. I thought for minute one, Rangers had the psychological edge over a 55,000 Celtic support at Celtic Park. I don't understand it. I thought the team looked intimidated, as I mentioned. I thought just because Cam McGregor was in the park, I think that was zero effect on the team because we were outplayed at Hampden when Cam McGregor was playing, and we drew for each and ended up winning the match. Cam McGregor was playing at Ibrox and we could beat 3-0 in January. So Rangers have sussed out at least how to combat us and combat us in terms of hit us where it hurts. And that is the same way they play in Europe. Well, they let us play football. I mean, they had 25% possession the other day there. And it's at Dundee, they had 18% possession and scored 3 goals against us. Hibs had 28 possession and scored 2 and beat us 2-1. So this is happening quite often, Boise, where we're playing teams who are getting 20-25% possession and they're scoring 2 and 3 goals against us. Now that's quite striking if you want to up against teams who will.
I think they're really good examples that you give there.
And I think they will. A better team. I think what happened on Sunday there, which is just my quick breakdown. I think Celtic looked like they were psychologically beaten before they went on the park. They played a team who were more streetwise.
So why would that be then? Let's explore that.
Yeah,
because as I've said, my only synopsis I can make as maybe being a percentage of the reason for that would be the surprise inclusion of a guy out in the cold, suddenly thrust into the team, and just a wee bit of doubt as to lack of familiarity, maybe a lack of faith in him. Not in a bad way again in a Rocky. We'll get to the comments in a bit. I'll get to that because there's quite a few agreeing with San Francisco, so we'll get to that in a bit. But if you think they were psychologically beaten before, and we take away the Nawrocki percentage of the lack of confidence play, what makes up the rest? The 16-point lead at the top, the League Cup win and final win, the fact that we've been this season we're showing form. We've just came out a calendar year, a record-breaking one. The fact that we've had the handle on this fixture, we hadn't lost in 5 years at Celtic Park to Rangers. What has led up to the rest of this sort of confidence that's been shot? That's what I can't square that one, mate. Do you know what I mean?
I've got a theory, mate. I've got a theory. I think Celtic so far this season have had players on form. They're not a team on form yet. You've had moments where you've had players that have been on form and have got us through matches. Like Maeda's had a good turn. McGregor had a wee bit of a turn. Kuhn had, as I said, maybe 5-6 weeks. We've had players that have been turning it on and giving us that wee spark. We've not saw the full team on form yet, boys. So let's be honest. We've had moments by players that have got us through stages, and luckily for us, it's been attacking players rather than defensive players. So we've been creating a lot of goals, and we hold a lot of possession. But I think Sunday was just a mixture of nobody on form. The game plan 40 fuck for minute one in terms of Rangers could beat our press, no bother. They could also press us so far at the park that we were making mistakes. But also, Celtic were physically intimidated. You could see it in them that they weren't want to beat a man. It was just a clusterfuck for minute one. It was just
they were given a hell of a lot of encouragement to Rangers as well in terms of once you get a bit of momentum with your press, right? And then you start seeing, right, okay, we weren't even really that close to our man there. And even when we weren't maybe as up his arse as we'd like to be or whatever, Celtic was struggling to make simple passes even then. So even at the times where the press from Rangers wasn't as prevalent, Celtic were still then giving wee clumsy encouragement to Rangers left, right and centre with square balls bobbling about everywhere, first touches under the boot. Just everything looked clumsy, looked a bit laboured and nervy. And I think every wee bit that we gave them, they absolutely devoured, and it fed into their mindset. Now, one of the things for me is we play them the last 3 times. We've conceded 3 goals each time. So we go into the game Sunday, it was two in a row, we conceded 3 goals. And I think we have all been in unison on this podcast, I'm sure plenty of others, radio, that Rangers press has caused Celtic bother. Now, I'm not a football manager. I don't want to be. I like to look at all the other stuff, the psychology and all that. And what does this mean going forward? And keep an eye on the board, all that shit, right? But for me, it means you need to change something if it doesn't look like we're. And I think we were guilty as well of being a nervy version of the predictable way we were going to play. And that was the same way we've played the other fixtures. And it wasn't happening. And I think still, and I've said this before, there is a reluctance, which I don't understand with the pace we've got. If it ain't working and they're pushing that high, I mean, go over the top. It doesn't need to be hoofed. These can be educated, well-placed passes into areas of space and behind, and get their guys turning on their heels. And then let's see a foot race with like Samida, with Nicholas Kuhn. Because they're nippy, they're fast. I mean, you can't. That was what there was something that you had to break that sort of shift in momentum, as I call it, Mark. And I just think all we were doing was playing into their hands. And even as I say, when they weren't pressing with the same intensity at moments, we were still looking that shaky with the passes. They were getting more and more encouragement. And the more they could see we weren't going to change our way of playing, the stronger their mindset got and the weaker ours did. And I'm not sure why we are so against when it's going like that. Swallow your pride.
Aye.
The game's not going your way. It's about getting the result. And you change it. And you do something that gets them thinking twice. Because I felt they didn't have to second guess us at any point. We played exactly how they prepared for.
Well, I think you're right. I think the game plan must have been to do the long ball every now and again. I think the players, for what I read, followed the game plan. I mean, there was an article online that I read that was a game plan. If they couldn't beat the press, they play the wings, you know what I mean, and play the diagonal balls. And we've seen a lot of diagonal balls under Rodgers. We have seen that. So it makes you wonder why they weren't getting utilised. And to be quite honest with you, Johnson's passing, I'm not a big fan of Arthur Johnson. I've told you before, his passing was very poor. So see that, boys, that takes away the edge. That takes away. Celtic, in my opinion, will make free passes rather than pass the ball 40 yards. And I don't understand. You look at Bayern Munich, the game at Celtic Park, the difference between Celtic and Bayern Munich that full night was Bayern Munich were making one pass to get the ball 30 yards. Celtic were taking 4 and 5 passes. And that just gives players with that level of ability a chance to regroup. And we found out the other day the Rangers must have loved it when they saw us pass the ball 4 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards. And there was no Carl McGregor coming in at the middle of the park, middle of the defence to take the ball. Engels wasn't doing it. McCowan was trying to stay on the periphery. And in the first half, Atati was just kind of invisible. Second half, he looked a bit better. But he was able to drop him in, so we had no relief. So the ball should have been played at the tap to Jota. I mean, it was criminal that Jota didn't get on the ball more in that first half. And then the fact that it took Kunaf at half time, I only found that it took Kunaf at half time. Was it last night? I was listening to a podcast and they mentioned it. I never knew that. I thought I'd just get in for the game and at half time, and it must have made a sub. I didn't even think about it. And I thought it must have been a worse first half than I remember of Kun. That's a bit of a bad statement. If you get
is there an imagery problem? And I think Rodgers is a millennial manager, right? And I wonder if he would be more likely to do the sort of tactic I was discussing there. I'm not saying it's the only answer, by the way. I'm sure there's loads of other variations. But just to throw that one out there, yeah?
I think is
there a reluctance to do that in this fixture? Because it looks image-wise that you've had to resort to this to beat the rivals you're meant to be leaving for dust. It's that part of it.
Maybe there is an argument. Maybe there's a. This is the biggest game of the season. This is the biggest game of the season.
We can't be seen to adopting our tactics.
We can't bend the knee for them. You know what I mean?
I wonder.
Do you know something? I don't care what anybody says. Ego does play a part in managers' decision making. I laid out in my mind. And 9 times out of 10 it works for Celtic. I think at Ibrox, by the way, I think you'll see Celtic play different. I think Celtic will say, right, Rangers, come on. Let's you play football. Because Rangers play well in Europe and then play well in certain games against us. If they lose an early goal, they're fucked, right? See if they get past 15, 20 minutes and they've not lost a goal yet. They settle into games. They play counter-attack. Like the other day, they had 28% possession and scored 3 goals against Celtic. That's a victory in everybody's eyes, right? For that style of football. I think you might see Celtic at Ibrox saying, you know what? Come on. let's go for it. We're not going to give you 50 yards of space behind your centre, our fullbacks. You come to us, and we'll give you a counter attack football, and that's when they become unstuck. The Celtic at Celtic Park under Rodgers just won't do that. I think if you'd watched that display under Neil Lennon, I think Neil Lennon would have got sharks thrown at him. His team would have been called lazy. They would have been called bottlers, and the full team would have got.
I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more with that.
Definitely, and I think anybody that's been watching Celtic close enough will tell you that Schmeichel's not kicked the ball, apart from once in Europe, for the last 4 months, if you're being honest here. The right back had enough. I've fed up with that guy. He's immune to criticism. Sloop and Navrocki, we can leave it. But Carrpool is having a pretty poor season as well, boys. He's giving away goals. I mean, he gave away 2 goals at Dundee a few weeks ago. He scored two own goals this season as well. He's been caught out multiple times at corner kicks and free kicks. He's having a poor season, let's be honest here. The midfield has been really awful. We've not found a midfield. There's not been a midfield this season yet where we've said that's our best midfield. It's not happened yet. We've had him on form or him on form. We've not went, that is it. That's our best midfield.
Sometimes that's a good thing, though. Sometimes that's a good thing, though. The other way is because they're vying for positions, mate. And that's the competition that we're
you're right, Boise, but
for Celtic to have.
No, and you're right if it's a case of that they're all stating a claim. I think they're all getting in because they're not doing it. And see if like, for instance, Engels is coming in, then the next week it's Bernardo, and you're going, oh, that's a decision. That's a decision there because he's better at this and he's better at that. I think that's a good thing for Celtic. But there's players getting games at Celtic because the ones in front of them or chosen before them are playing stinkers. I mean, we're talking like I put a wee thing on my brother's chat the other day there, and I was talking about Engels event. Right, I said I put a wee list up. I said, right, just tick yes or no on any of these points because I want to find out what's happening here. I said, is Engels fast? No. I said, is it a good pass of the ball? No. I said, okay. Is it good positioning? No. I said, okay. Is it a good cross of the ball? No, really. I said, okay. Is it a good shooter? Can he shoot for distance? Is it good? No. I said, well, in a serious question now, all kidding aside, going to tell me what it is he's giving us. Because I can't find it in my head. I said, I can tell you McGregor can control and dictate games. Even when he's playing poorly, he'll still get in amongst it at times. He'll still be that man in the middle to take away the defensive pressure. He'll still get forward. Hatate, he'll try that pass. He's awful at doing it, but he'll try it. And I was trying to decipher what it is he's keen us. And I thought, there's literally nothing on the list that even people who are telling me he's good. They couldn't pick one thing after the list that he's particularly good at. And I thought, well, what is he good at? I can't understand it, boys. I just can't figure it out.
When I go through the team that played at the weekend, I think you could then do a deep dive into all of them from a pretty negative prism because they were all shit, right? They were all shit at the weekend. No two ways about it, right? Apart from Navrocki, who made everyone else shit. That's a joke. I mean, just to play, in fact, not even to play devil's advocate, I've got to disagree with some of it because at the end of the day, there's been times this season where the consistency has led to us having the points gap that we've got. There's also the case for 12 points in the Champions League this year. And there has been more, for example, like Nicholas Kuhn you were talking about, there's been more than 5-6 weeks because he's on nearly 30 goal contributions this season. You know, if he'd done that in 5-6 weeks, fucking hell, it's Marco Negri numbers. You know what I mean? I guess it's longer than what you're making.
December, boys, he was good. That's about it. It's just what I remember. I think he's been watching since January when Jota came in.
Yeah, I think since I speculated on that at the weekend as well. Something's happened. But when I go through the team, they can't have been as bad as you're making it either to have got themselves where they are. And I know the other argument, which fucking frustrates me, and the other lot do it, that always the league's pish when Rodgers coasts leagues and it's not competitive, or you've then got to flip it over. Did we make it not competitive? They can't all have been quite as below par as what you're making it, but I get it, Judge. That's what you're here for. You have colourful takes, and I like that. Your colours are to the mast, mate. You know what I mean? You say what you mean what you say. That's all
I'll
good.
probably be a bit unfair, mate. I'll probably be a bit unfair on some players.
But you're passionate about it. You're upset. But I think
good moments though. That's about it. You know, like
yeah.
Coon, as you said, he's been brilliant for a while, and he's got us through games. Made us had the last 2 months, boys, and he's been fucking dynamite. He's been good all season, but he's been dynamite the last two.
Yeah.
And then before that, we had McGregor scoring goals like outside the box at every angle. I think with players on form, the team know so much. If you get my point, that's just.
I think there's examples where the team has shown it, and I'll give you a great one.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great one, and it's always that one, Bergamo, which used to be the artist formerly known as Atalanta, but for some reason it turned into that performance. Then was a teammate.
Yeah.
That point away there was a team that had fucking licked their wounds, learnt their lesson for Dortmund, where it was more stereotypical Celtic away in Europe. See, to flip it a couple of weeks later and put that display in against Europa League finalists, Europa League winners for last year, that was stunning. And that showed me a team. That's just one example.
Well, it's a unit, boys. I meant form as in like form rather than results. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's funny. I remember the Christmas period. Don't get me wrong, we had a nice run of home games as well to boot, but we'd scored like 3-4, 4-3 to no goals conceded. And then, of course, had the anomaly of the Rangers game flung in, which kind of spoiled that.
Yeah,
that consistent run. I just think for me, I wouldn't have been if it had been as bad as what we're saying there. I wouldn't have been as shocked as I was on Sunday. So you can't have it. I know. We know. I genuinely thought, wow, that's miles off it, and I just couldn't get to the bottom of why. Now, the title of the show is obviously about, titles sewn up, but the seeds need to be planted for next year now. And I do think it's not just bragging rights, these games. And I don't take comfort in, well, we already knew the league was in the bag. How could you go out in that derby there, in that environment, in that sort of game, and be thinking about how many points clear you are in the league during the game? You don't.
No.
Right? You don't. So I don't swallow that argument at all. I think that's deflection pish. If it's me, that's just condoning when we're below par, and you've got to just be critical and honest and give all the praise when we win these games. One of the other things I heard on one of the other pods through the week was, had Johnson scored, we did get it back from 2-0 to 2-2, and had Johnson scored, it would have been 3-3. So it was close. I went, flip that the other way, right? And look at all the games we've won like that against them, where they've had an offside goal, they've had a goal disallowed, we've only won by a 1-goal margin, and we always go, well, it's the same outcome, we win. So I'm not going down that road of comfort blanket pish either. But what I will say is, for the rest of this season out, and of course with Ibrox in mind when I'm talking about this, you need to start planting seeds as well, that when we finish this season, we're going to finish it like a Rolls Royce. We're not just going to canter to this title way. Remember Mark O'Neill's, I think it was his first year, and we lost a couple of games after the split. We had the league slowing up. And I always thought that was a bad vibe, that I didn't like that. And we went for treble winners to just winning the league the next year, and I think they won the 2 cups, if my memory serves me right.
You're right.
You're right. And I thought that was a bad look. And I think we should be now looking like to go, right, that's the last of the blips now. That's it. And it's now time to sprint to the finish line. And that includes going to Ibrox. That includes making a statement there and not giving them any more oxygen either. And by the way, from their standpoint as well, I genuinely think they're just having the Neil Lennon effect when he replaced Mowbray. If you remember that 8 games out of 8 he won in the league, but sadly we went out to Ross County in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup.
That's right, aye.
But he won 8 out of 8 in the league, and that included the win against Rangers. And that was very much, I think, very similar vibes to what you're seeing across there. But does it give me comfort? I think look at the team Lennon built the next year. And he won 89 points, I think it was, the next year, and we finished second on the last day. Then obviously we won it the season after that. But these things in Scottish football, it's not like all other leagues. It's not going to just need to be like Pep Guardiola in charge of Rangers for them to usurp Celtic. So we've got to take the threat there real. But what we can do, and what's our gift between now and the end of the season, is to just stamp down on any hope that they've got. And that'll mean us leading by example, winning the rest of our league games. That includes going there. And the more wins we rack up in a row after this game that we've just had, the more wins we rack up, lepers never change their spots. They'll start dropping points again. The more their expectation levels grow domestically, it's when they start dropping points. That's what happens. See, right now, when it's puncher's chance stuff, they're always at their best. But if we're slipping up, they'll smell a wee bit of opportunity there. Do you know what I mean? And they know they can't win the league, so that pressure's kind of off. But let's just keep us racking up the points. Let's make it look embarrassing, that gap. Let's keep it 13 points minimum until we go to Ibrox. And then make a statement win there, because next season's got to be in our mind's eye already. What do you think of that?
No, I think you're spot on. I think you've got to go to Ibrox and get a result, but also between now and the cup final, forget there is all about showing we're the best team in this country and just laying a marker 3-4 nils all over the place, showing why you're in a position to be 16 points clear going into the game on Sunday there. I think you've got to. I mean, Rodgers mentioned it last season at this time. He said this is the Celtic. This is the final lap. We come good at this time. Well, let's see it again, because this will be a blip if we go and win the rest of the games this season. If we start to drop points, then it shows fragility. And I also think that you mentioned next season that you do lay a lot of seeds just now for next season, and that's not just on the park, that's off it as well. You think, well, we could be going next season possibly on Rodgers' last season at Celtic. They'll be starting a new cycle of football or management, so they could be a year ahead of us on their next cycle. So our next move is just as important as their next move. Do you know what I mean, boys? And I think, and these decisions will need to be made this summer, one way or another. Celtic will need to get that going. The Rangers will need to be. Rangers are hoping to have what we've got in place just now. That's their end game. A good structure after the park, a team on the park that can win, and a team that can sell players without losing that momentum. We've got that already. They're hoping to get that way, but we lose some of that if we don't make the right decisions in the summertime, if you get me. So I think this season does matter between now and August. You know what I mean? And we've got to win this treble. We've got to get that. We've got to. You don't win the treble, boys. Then before you know it, this season plays out, and it does become the bite of a damp squib. It does. You know what I mean? As daft as it is to say that about a team that could win a double or a treble, the double rather, you have to win the treble now, because Rangers are out of competition. Celtic are now needing to motor to the Scottish Cup final and just seal it, but not just seal it with aplomb. Let everybody else know why we're in a position that we win trebles and doubles.
No, I totally agree.
And I totally agree. I think we've got the best manager that can do that, boys. But it's now up to us with this downtime to refocus. I don't mean a refocus as in like get a few players back in the train run. I'm talking about refocus now in terms of like that. It's been a challenging few months with the Champions League and a couple of derby match defeats. Let's just refocus and let's just get back on the game. But we do as a team, and that's just win regardless of the opposition and regardless of the points gap. And that's how we get to 16 points clear, boys. By not checking the mirror behind you, but just by going forward and focusing on yourself.
Well, exactly. Yeah, when you're focusing on yourself as well. I mean, the other thing is, if we keep stuttering, our way to the title, it just creates a wee bit of doubt as well.
It does.
And you don't want to go in the summer with any of those sort of vibes, mate.
No.
You want to go in there, feeling like treble champions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go in there with that momentum. Remember, I'm sure I'm right here. Strachan's third season, we won the Scottish Cup with Perrier Doumbé. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
right. Third season, and it was the shittest Scottish Cup final ever. Remember, he scored the slide. It was like a side tackle. He scored the right back.
I bet you a funny goal, wasn't it?
Aye. And we went into that summer, I don't think, despite winning the league and the cup, I think we went into there just not quite as convinced of ourselves anymore. And if you remember his fourth season, we were an absolute disaster. And I just, these things matter. So you've got the real champion's mindset is to go, right, whether this title's banked or not, let's start looking ahead to next year, and Landon blows on what happens in the summer. Landon blows on what happens at the beginning of the next campaign. Now.
Yep. I think you've got to, mate. You've got to put doubt in their heads that Celtic are a wounded animal rather than the other way. But if we show any sign of weakness, we're the biggest fish in the small pond in Scotland. If anybody sees anything they can nibble off us, boys say they will. We got to show every week why we're the top dogs. See, being at the top of the tree, boys say it comes with its pitfalls as well. So you've got to be the very best version of yourself every single week, and that's why some players come to Celtic with all the ability, but mentally they can't handle it. This team has got the mental ability to win leagues and win trebles and doubles, but now it's a different type of pressure because we've not saw this before. This has been a tricky few months where the team is mentally tired. I think they're mentally fatigued. You can see it as the stats I told you about losing goals in the first and last minutes. That's mental fatigue, boys. That's the only way you can break that down. Being so consistent at losing goals in the opening and closing minutes of halves. That's mental. That's sharpness. Celtic have always been a club who score goals in the last 5 minutes of matches, not because they've just got the better players. It's because they've got the players who are fully focused to the first minute to the last minute. You know what I mean? And I think there's something just lacking just now. And I don't think it's ability wise. I think there's something upstairs now. And I think if Rodgers, who for me is the best man manager we've had in a very long time, if there's something not working just now, I think it's up to him to find a solution.
Well,
And,
I saw that.
I think we found the other day there that, again, boys, the other day there was subs to be made, and he's choosing not to make them. And I think there's a definite standoff with Celtic with his subs just now, because anybody watching that game would have known you get Johnson off that park straight away. You get Taylor on that park straight away. You try and get that place hanged up. It didn't happen, you know what I mean? And we've seen games where we're chasing goals and as players just can't get off the bench. You know what I mean? And we're seeing wingers getting picked through the middle when we're struggling for wingers. We're struggling to get a team together and all that. And you're going, he's making these statements. You know what I mean? I feel like there might be more stuff at play than what we know about. And then again, you've got the team news getting leaked again, which was happening a few months ago. There's maybe more going on than what we know about, boys. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of this, but maybe there's no as calm behind the scenes at Celtic Park with what we think. I don't know. Rodgers asked for a striker in January, never got one for a start.
Yes.
And I think there's more to. It doesn't look as happy in his job as what he did. And I'm not just trying to be hyperbolic here. You can see the same guy, January 1st, was talking about how he's going to improve the squad. Well, we were weaker by the end of it. We sold a striker and get a winger who we probably going to need as much as he came in and improved the team. A winger in the left-hand side wasn't really anybody's priority, boys. So let's be honest. It was shafted in that window, and right up until the last 2 days of the window, he was talking about bringing a striker in, and it didn't happen. I think that does piss a manager off.
Well, what it does is it changes the direction of the ship a wee bit.
It does,
because when all hands are on deck and everyone's pulling in the same direction, it goes smoothly. See when someone, one aspect of that team, decide that they're going to change tact, and suddenly it doesn't feel like everyone's believing it, and everyone's going in that same and pulling in that same direction, it can knock things off kilter. I mean, another example I would give is I've celebrated many a times on here. I think the calendar year of 2024 will be looked back on like we undervalued it at the time. That's just my opinion. And that's why I'm always quick to highlight it on here, Mark, because at the time I said 50 games, 2 defeats, both away from home, 1 Dortmund, 1 Tynecastle, and our manager got his first ever ban for comments about a referee after the Hearts one, right? That gives you a bit of perspective as to, and that includes Champions Leagues, it includes trophies, the lot. Now, when I look at this year, is that 4 we've lost? Double the amount of games? 5. Is it?
5 since January 2nd. Rangers twice, Burnley, Villa, and Munich.
Bayern. So we've lost 5 games in the calendar year of 2025. So of course, these wee things like the January window, you sell your, in many people's eyes, one of our best players. I thought it was the right time to sell, but I
Me
only thought it
too.
was the right. I thought it was the right time to sell. With obviously I mean, call me mental, but obviously the strategy being that we'll have a replacement in, right?
Aye.
It wasn't sell and not replace. That was never part of. I thought it was a fair price for a player that wanted to go at that age. Who's probably best days at a Celtic shirt behind him as well.
Yeah.
But it was always with the mindset of, because we will replace him, to not do that at the manager's request. Of course, that can set a tone as well. Of course, it
He
can.
but he was so upfront about it. He was saying every day in the media, it's like, oh, of course we're going to. You know, he was saying it like he was speaking for the first time in a long time, very matter of fact. Oh no, we've got forward thinking players we want to bring in, be more aggressive and forward. And really, the only player that he bought was a swap for Kyogo. I mean, we done nothing in January like that I can remember, you know. And Sloop, he came in with 2 hours to go in the window, boys. I think he was an emergency contact. I think
He should have been brought in before.
He should have been brought in. In fact, if he'd been brought in, we might have seen. Like I think it's the decision made. I think Taylor's been told, if you're not signing by a certain date, we're going to move on without you. So the guy's been flung out the squad altogether, right? He's been flung out the squad altogether. So he went to Ibrox and he played a stinker. Let's be honest.
Home to Bayern.
That was probably the end game, boys. But I think the guy's career at Celtic, he deserved merely a chance towards the end than just being dropped. I think it's more to do with the contract situation. So Sloop should have been brought in, or Kieran Tierney should have been brought in. Somebody should have been brought in. You know what I mean? And I just think, again, boys, we speak about it all the time. That I mean, see when you get a team sheet there on Sunday, boys. I bet you're one of your first. I've not spoken to you about this. Bet one of your first thoughts were, if something goes wrong, what's on the bench? Did you think that? Right, of course.
Right. The honest truth was, I knew the first choice sub on the bench was Adam Eder, but I knew that meant Yang came on.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my first thought. And it's not a big bias thing against him or anything like that, but
no,
I mean he is a go-to sub.
And you saw the depth, didn't you? And
that level's quite for me. I'm adamant it's still a huge drop off.
That's a drop off.
Yang's, and I think but looking at the bench, Yang's a guarantee to be one of the go-tos.
Yeah,
like he's a given he comes on,
and
that. I mean, see, at the end of the day, all that aside, and it's right to look at it with the same scrutiny you would if it was a tight league setup or not right now. You know what I mean? I think that's the only right thing to do. And it's right then to maybe look at other areas that have flagged up or highlighted because of a bad result. I don't mind that. I think that's okay. For a bit of balance, Celtic are 13 points good. They are on course for a league title again. Celtic did impress me in Europe this year. I know it didn't go quite as well, but I think they were unlucky to get Bayern Munich as well in that final. You know, people talk about a king draw. Well, a playoff round featuring, playing against Bayern Munich between the 16th and 24th sides. Bayern Munich were in that. That's not really that falling into that argument. And by the way, took them all the way. And I was encouraged by the fact we actually had a bigger lead in the league title race, having actually achieved in Europe, minorly achieved, but competed in Europe. Marc, massively competed. We got you out from behind the couch to watch Celtic in Europe this year.
Yeah.
We've seen you with a wee bit of optimism, a bit of hope. Watch your Celtic in Europe. To see that in sort of tandem was a huge stride for me this year. But see, because Europe's done, it might sound like I'm being a hypocrite here because I always say focus on Europe. But now Europe's done, doesn't mean we just take our eye off the ball altogether.
No.
We need to finish the season sharp because our biggest games the next season are going to be our first ones. And that'll be the playoffs.
And
the Champions League. So
this is the worry, boys. So like what we had this season was I think we all enjoyed the Champions League this season, right? We all enjoyed it. It felt different, didn't it? It felt like a different Champions League feel what normal was. It just felt like there was, I don't know, it was just a different approach to it. You know what I mean? And we've got to get there next season. We've got to get there. You know what I mean? And I think you mentioned the seeds earlier on. The seeds of that are made in the January window, and we might go into these important games, as you said, the first games of the season. we might get into that thinking, is it Yang or Kuhn? Is it Ida or Maeda? Is it Navrocki or is Carter Vickers fit this week? Is Trusty babysitting? You know what I mean? Is this where we're at as a club now? We're going back doing that approach because the £800 million in the bank club or whatever it is should be fielding a team of subs like that against Rangers boys at Celtic Park. I'm sorry, there wasn't a massive injury crisis at Celtic with like 2 players out and a captain. It wasn't like with a pandemic again. It was just really poor recruitment. It just happened to be. It wasn't unlucky. It wasn't unlucky. We sold a defender and put the 2 defenders out on loan, and then replaced any of them. So it wasn't poor. It wasn't unluckiness. It was just bad recruitment. You know what I mean? And it was all to the fore. You know what I mean? And I think what we've seen is new. The games that really matter to us, like Munich, we might have got through that match had we signed Kieran Tierney. I think we might get through that home match, right? The game the other day there, we might get through that match had we had signed better quality on the bench. But we didn't, and we knew it's beginning to. I was going to say it's beginning to come home to roost. That's the wrong way. But now we're beginning to see what happens when you don't invest. When I know this isn't about the board, but they've got a role to play in what we're seeing just now. I think next season's team should be in place just now. We always say that, boys. We say the same thing every season. And Champions League is important next year. We've got to get through the qualifiers. I think we've only got 1 qualifier depending. And what's going to happen? Are we going to get to the last week of the window and we've still got the same back 4? We've still got the same midfield minus Hatate. And we've still got the same front 3 minus a Kuhn. Is that where we're going to be next season? Is that where we're going? Because I'm more confident that will happen than us get a cracking summer window. Do you know what I mean?
No, I hear what you're saying, mate. I hear what you're saying. I mean, a lot of that's still to be seen, and we will find out how desperate Celtic are to get back in the Champions League again. But all's not lost. Everyone's still in our hands to finish this season, but I think it was right to critically analyse after the result of that. I don't accept the dead rubber pattern. I don't find Celtic Rangers games dead rubbers. I don't think the players treat it as dead rubbers. I just think when they go out to play that the points gap, and that's not really in their mindset. I just think it was the actual game that caught us off guard, not anything else. But listen, Judge, we'll call it there, right? Because that's been a brilliant to get your take on it. And by the way, just a wee bit of a reality check. It's always been a reality check with Celtic still holding all the aces going forward to finish this season in a far, far better space than what we found ourselves this week. We've got the international break now. Put that to one side. You go in again with fresh head, 13 points clear, Scottish Cup semi to look forward to, and a League Cup in the bag. It could be worse.
Well, spot. I mean, just one thing before we go. I mean, just as I was coming, I left the McCoy's pub about 12:10 to go to the game, and the Polish had 2 sections of the Celtic fans stoked to usher in a group of maybe 50, 60 Rangers fans who should have been in the stadium by 10:30 by the police in rules. You know what I mean? And I did see a wee bit of the kettling that was going on with the fans, and I found some. It was hard to watch. I feel like I'm fed up with football fans in this country being treated like second-class citizens. But I think now our club's complicit in some of it, boys. I'm the biggest critic of the ultras when they do bad things, boys. So you know the stick we've took on here for calling things as we see it. But I just thought the other day there was terrible. Rangers fans and Celtic fans both getting killed by the police, and I just think that they chose Sunday to make a real statement to the ultras, and I don't think it was the day to do it. You know what I mean? They speak about fan engagement. They ask us questions and they don't want the answers. You know what I mean? And I just thought Sunday was just one of the days that really go to Celtic fans' backs up, and to have that empty space at Celtic Park when it was supposed to be the match where everybody grew up and go to Celtic together with away fans in, with home fans supporting Celtic, away fans supporting Rangers, and look, the game's back, and the first thing you see at the first corner kick is a a patch of empty fans where the ultras sit. It was just ridiculous, boys. I think the club are complicit. John Paul Taylor's got an impossible job. I don't know why he's still at the club. I think the guy should just quit if he's getting anything about him. He's trying so hard, and the club just shaft him at every corner. Just a horrible, vile board we've got, boys. Do you know what I mean? And I think Sunday was just the last straw for a lot of folk, even like myself, who can see some element to what the board try to do with the ultras. You know what I mean? Try and keep them in check, but I'm getting fed up with now, boys. I think the board are that sometimes they're the team's biggest enemy, and we've seen that sometimes when the fans are banned and there's results don't go away. But I think now it's a case that there's going to be either.
You see the term kettle and all that, being they're treated like cattle. Let's be real.
I've seen it. See the post. I remember one time I was in Edinburgh for a Celtic game, and it was me and my wee lassie, and she was a lot smaller than what she is now. And they like there was like one entrance. There's like 3 big gates or 2 big gates, and they closed it all and left enough room for like 2 people to come through. Boys, they were squashing us. There was police horses pushing us in. And I said to one of the police, "Maybe the lassie's going to get crushed here." The woman police just looked away from me. And then you had 2 years ago, Celtic Park, 3 years ago, sorry, under the concourse in the North Stand. Sometimes they used to close the gates, and the Celtic fans get crushed. There was people with their face up against the metal railings, and people were begging, and the police just walked away. You know what I mean? And I think when you wear a Celtic scarf, a Rangers scarf, anybody's scarf, you lose any level of common decency.
Right.
You're not allowed it, boys. You're not allowed to walk about with a carry bag in case there's drink in it. You're not allowed to have any form of, like discretion. You know what I mean? Like knew anybody that wears a snoot. I wear a snoot because I'm always cold, as you know. The post was staring at me.
I'm surprised you don't go in your dressing gown.
well, I might do that. In summertime. I go in my shorts and t-shirt. But I had one on. What was the last night team game we had a few weeks ago? I had my snood on because it was cold, and the post I got out of her motor, and the post up here staring at me, and I'm like, a 40-year-old man just finished a day's working in quite a given job that I do. You know what I mean? I thought, how dare you treat me like that? You know what I mean? And I think football fans get shafted left, right, and centre, and I'm just fed up with it, boys. I think Celtic support have got to. Every club has got to just be united against this absolute disgrace that's happening to Celtic fans and football fans in general in this country. 1.8 billion a year we bring in, boys. 1.8 billion a year comes into this economy through football. I read just the other day there. That's a big chunk of money, you know what I mean? And we get treated like absolute pieces of shit. I think it's time that every fan, Raith Rovers, Kilmarnock, Celtic, Rangers fans, made a stance here and done something, you know what I mean? Because it's getting worse and worse for people who are not only paying to go and watch the football, boys, but they're coming out there 9 times out of 10 out their houses with kids, and they're trying to get Waynes into football and get the next generation of people going into football. And
I think what you're seeing as well, though. I think what you're seeing as well is if Celtic were complicit in that, which I'm pretty sure they were aware that was going to happen, right? It mirrors both teams right now. Because obviously yesterday we had the big statement o'clock for Rangers about their own fans with the banner about, and I think there is an element of both clubs' boards and both clubs' sets of ultras, if you want to call it that, not carry on. Like, I think they are, to be honest with you, kind of in different trains, and I think both boards of both clubs are desperately trying to keep themselves PC.
Yeah.
As safe as possible to not jeopardise entry into UEFA competition, because that'll disrupt revenue streams, etc. And probably going OTT in some cases with the whole whatever agenda is that's flavour of the month with the modern world, and that's pissing off. Then it sets the fans, and then they're pulling the other direction. And I do think both kind of mirror each other right now. You've got 2 ultra groups that are massively, massively influential, and 2 sets of boards right now kind of going, you're a massive problem, but a necessity, but a problem. And I think it's a difficult one for both boards to square that circle right now. But I do think when I look at that kettling incident, as it's being called, kettled, I never really heard that term before, but sounds about right. When I see that, I go, there's no way Celtic Board hadn't been made aware of that by Police Scotland in advance. And I look at then the statement for Rangers yesterday about their Union Bears, whatever they're called, and I think both of them seem to be having the same sort of dilemma, shall we say, with the most prominent fan groups. But like I say, Matt, I've got a boost, so I better.
Sorry, mate. I think that's a policy. I think a policy get involved. Right, I'll catch you later. Thanks.
I'm going to boost. Sorry about that, Mark, mate.
No, it's a good pod. I'm glad to
apologies. Brilliant to have you back on, my man. Fantastic. Great to see the judge. And 150 live on the old bus as well. So a big thank you to you all. We'll pick that up though another time, Mark, all right? And thank you again for jumping back on the T.N.F. See you later.
Welcome.